Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. My name is Daniel, and for the longest time, I believed I had the perfect marriage. Clara and I had been together for nearly a decade, and everything seemed to fall into place effortlessly. We lived in a cozy home in the suburbs of Hartford, shared dreams of traveling the world, and had a connection I thought was unshakable. To everyone who knew us, we were the epitome of a happy couple. The Parkers are goals, our friends would say, as if we were the blueprint for a successful, loving relationship. But as I would soon discover, love alone isn't always enough to keep a marriage intact. It all started when Clara began visiting her sister more frequently than usual. At first, it seemed harmless, even thoughtful. "Daniel, I'm heading to Emily's place today. She's been feeling a bit overwhelmed with the kids," she'd say. I'd smile and nod, thinking how lucky Emily was to have such a caring sister. Emily lived about 45 minutes away, just outside the city, so it made sense that Clara would want to help out. But soon, these visits became a weekly ritual, then twice a week, and before I knew it, Clara was spending more time with her sister than with me. Clara would leave the house in the late afternoon and return around midnight, sometimes even later. When she came home, she looked different, radiant, almost as if she'd just come back from spa day. I noticed it immediately. She'd walk in humming to herself, a small, content smile playing on her lips. One night, she came home unusually late, kicked off her shoes, and plopped onto the couch beside me. "Good time with Emily?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, the kids were in a great mood today, and Emily finally got some rest. It was a good day." "That's great," I said, but something about her smile felt off. It didn't quite reach her eyes. Over time, I started noticing little inconsistencies. One evening, Clara came home wearing a bracelet I'd never seen before, a delicate silver chain with a small charm. Another time, I caught a faint, unfamiliar scent on her jacket, something earthy and masculine, not one of her usual floral perfumes. "Is this a new bracelet?" I asked, holding it up. Clara glanced at it, her expression calm but careful. "Oh yes, Emily gave it to me as a thank you gift. She said I've been such a big help lately." I nodded slowly, trying to push down the growing unease. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but something didn't feel right. Then there were the phone calls. Clara would step out of the room to take them, her voice low and soft. Once I walked in unexpectedly and caught the tail end of a conversation. "Okay, I'll see you soon," she whispered before hanging up. When she saw me, she jumped. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just a friend from work," she replied, her voice a little too quick, a little too high-pitched. I wanted to press her, but I didn't. I let it slide. I wanted to trust her. A few weeks later, I finally gathered the courage to confront her. "Clara, can we talk?" I asked one evening as we were having dinner. The air was filled with the aroma of her homemade pasta, but I could hardly taste it. My mind was too preoccupied. "Of course," she said, her fork pausing midair. "What's on your mind?" I hesitated, unsure how to begin. I didn't want to sound accusatory, but I couldn't keep my feelings bottled up any longer. "It's about your visits to Emily's. You've been going more often lately, and I feel like something's off." She set her fork down gently, her face softening. "Daniel, you're overthinking. Emily needs me, and I enjoy spending time with her and the kids. It's nothing more than that." I took a deep breath, trying to choose my words carefully. "I get it, Clara. I really do. I know Emily means the world to you, and I love that you care so much for her. It's one of the things I admire about you." She smiled slightly, perhaps thinking the conversation was over. But I wasn't done. "It's just that," I continued, "we barely spend time together anymore. It feels like every night you're with her, and when you come home, you're too tired to even talk. I miss us, Clara. I miss the nights we'd sit on the couch, just you and me, watching some silly show or talking about her day." Her smile faded, replaced by a look of frustration. "What do you want me to do, Daniel? Stop visiting her? She's been needing me more lately. I can't just ignore her because you feel lonely." "I understand that," I said, my voice softening. "But I need you too, Clara. We both need to find a balance." She sighed, still visibly frustrated. "You know Emily is my first priority right now. She needs my help. Things would get back to normal eventually. Without waiting for my response, she stood up abruptly and headed toward the bedroom, leaving me sitting at the table, staring at my untouched plate of food. The sound of the door closing behind her echoed through the silence of the room. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind wouldn't rest. Did I push her too much? Was I being unreasonable? I replayed our conversation over and over, wondering if I'd been too demanding, too needy. Maybe I should have just been more supportive, given her the space she needed. 2 days later, Clara was in the shower, getting ready for yet another visit to Emily's. I was sitting on the bed, checking my emails when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but something made me glance at the screen. It was a message from someone named Marcus. Asterisk, hey babe, can't wait for tonight. I missed you already. Asterisk. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Asterisk, babe? Marcus? Asterisk. Curiosity, dread, and disbelief mixed in my gut as I picked up the phone. My hands trembled as I unlocked it and opened the messaging app. The conversation with Marcus was right there in plain sight. I started scrolling through their messages, my breath hitching with each word. Asterisk, last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Asterisk. Asterisk, me too. Wish we didn't have to sneak around. Asterisk. Asterisk, I'll tell Daniel I'm going to Emily's again. He doesn't suspect a thing. Asterisk. I could barely breathe. The time she claimed to be visiting her sister, she had been meeting this man. The radiant happiness she brought home wasn't from spending time with her family. It was from him. She had been using Emily as an excuse to sneak behind my back. I couldn't believe it. Clara was cheating on me. I quickly put the phone back on the nightstand and tried to steady my breathing. The shower stopped, and moments later, Clara stepped out, a towel wrapped around her. She glanced at me, her face neutral, unaware of what I had just uncovered. As she got dressed, she spoke casually. I'll probably be home late again tonight. Emily's been feeling a bit down, and I want to be there for her. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to remain calm. Okay, I said, my tone even. Give my greetings to Emily. She smiled faintly. I will. I watched her finish getting ready, each movement now seeming foreign, like I was looking at a stranger. Inside, I was crumbling, but outwardly, I remained composed. As Clara left the house, something inside me refused to sit still. I had to know the truth. I quickly grabbed my keys and followed her, keeping a safe distance so she wouldn't notice. My heart pounded with every turn she took, expecting her to head to some clandestine meeting with Marcus. But to my surprise, she drove straight to Emily's house. I parked a little down the street, my confusion growing. What's going on? She went inside, greeting Emily warmly at the door. I stayed in my car, watching, waiting for something, anything out of the ordinary. An hour passed. There were no signs of anything unusual. The house was quiet, lights on in the living room, the silhouette of Emily occasionally passing by the windows. I waited another hour. Still nothing. She was just there, in Emily's house like she said she would be. Finally, after another 30-minute wait, with no unusual movements or unexpected visitors, I decided to head back home. The whole drive, my mind raced. Asterisk, was I wrong? Was she really just visiting Emily? Asterisk. When I got home, I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, trying to make sense of what I had seen, or rather, what I hadn't seen. About an hour later, Clara returned, just like she said she would. She looked tired but calm, dropping her purse on the table before heading to the bedroom. I watched her, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. Asterisk, she was supposed to meet Marcus. I saw the messages. So why did she stay at Emily's house all night? Asterisk. Doubts started creeping in. Asterisk, could I be wrong? Am I overthinking everything? Asterisk, but the messages were there, clear as day. How can those messages not be true? Something wasn't adding up, and it gnawed at me. The pieces of the puzzle didn't fit, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still very wrong. The next day, Clara was set to visit Emily again that night, but the doubts still lingered in my mind. What's really going on? I was still unsure, my mind swirling with the contradictions of her behavior and the messages I'd seen. I had to know more. So, when she wasn't around, I picked up my phone and called Emily's house. Emily answered, and I put on my best calm voice, masking the storm of questions in my head. "Hi, Emily. How are you?" I greeted her. "Oh, Daniel, it's so good to hear from you." "I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?" "I'm doing okay," I said, keeping it casual. "I would love to visit you both, but I've just been really busy with work lately. Things are hectic at the moment." "Oh, I understand," she replied warmly. "Work can be demanding, especially with the way things are these days." We made small talk for a bit, and then I casually brought up Clara. "You know, Clara has been visiting you a lot lately. I'm glad you two get to spend so much time together." Emily chuckled. "Yes, she's been coming over quite often. Most of the time, just for an hour or two to check on us. But yesterday, she stayed the whole night. We had a lovely time just talking and having dinner." I froze, my mind racing as I processed her words. Asterisk an hour or two. When she'd been visiting them, she'd always been gone for 4 or 5 hours. Asterisk. I quickly composed myself, forcing my voice to remain steady. "That's great. I'm glad you two are so close. I know Clara really enjoys spending time with you." Emily went on, unaware of the whirlwind of thoughts in my head. "Oh, she does. We always have a lovely time. I'm happy to have her around." "Yeah, she's great," I replied, trying to act normal. "Well, I won't keep you. I just wanted to check in. Give my best to the kids." "I will, Daniel. Take care of yourself." We hung up, and I sat there in stunned silence, the phone still in my hand. Asterisk an hour or two. She's been gone for hours when she visits them. Where does she go for the rest of that time? Asterisk. My mind clicked into place. Asterisk, she wasn't spending hours at Emily's house. She was only there for a couple of hours at most. The rest of the time, those missing hours, she was somewhere else. Somewhere I hadn't known about. Asterisk. Then it hit me like a brick. Asterisk, she's been using her visits to Emily as a cover. A camouflage. She was in Emily's house for a couple of hours, enough to seem like she was there, and then she'd leave to meet Marcus. The longer she stayed out, the more time she had to sneak away. Asterisk. The pieces fell into place. The messages, the lies, the missing hours, they all made sense now. She had been using Emily as a cover, pretending to visit her while secretly sneaking behind my back to be with Marcus. I couldn't believe it. Clara was cheating on me, and I'd been blind to it for so long. If I hadn't insisted on finding the truth, I probably would have never learned what was happening, because her lies were so well planned. That evening, as Clara took a shower to get ready for her visit to Emily's house, I couldn't shake the thoughts of what I had just discovered. I knew I had to check her phone again. With a sense of urgency, I picked it up and unlocked it, my heart racing as I scanned through her messages, hoping for something new, something that might explain it all. And then I saw them. New messages from Marcus. Asterisk, hey babe, something unexpected came up, and I won't be able to see you tonight. But I'll be free tomorrow night. Can't wait to see you again. Asterisk. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Asterisk, that's why she stayed at Emily's house so long yesterday. She was supposed to meet Marcus, but something had happened to him, and he couldn't make it. So she spent all that extra time with Emily as an excuse, pretending everything was normal. Asterisk. As I sat there, a mix of anger and betrayal washed over me. But I knew I had to follow her again. I couldn't let this go. Tonight, she was meeting with Marcus, and I had to know the truth. When she finally left the house that night, I got into my car and followed her. I watched as she drove to Emily's house again. I stayed parked nearby, waiting for any sign of what she was doing. An hour passed, then another. I was starting to feel like I was chasing ghosts, but I had to stay patient. Finally, Clara came out of the house and got into her car. My heart pounded in my chest. This was it. I followed her again, trying to keep my distance. She drove to a bar downtown, and when she pulled up, I couldn't believe my eyes. Marcus was already there, standing outside, waiting for her. I watched as they met, hugged and kissed. My stomach twisted. I pulled out my phone and began snapping pictures, capturing every moment. I couldn't let this moment slip away. This was the proof I needed. After about an hour, they finally got in Clara's car together. They were laughing, their hands all over each other as they kissed once again. My heart sank further. I followed them as they drove and eventually stopped outside a house, probably Marcus's place. They got out of the car, arms around each other, kissing passionately in the front yard. I snapped more pictures, my hands shaking. This was it. They walked inside, still hugging, still lost in each other. I had it all now, every picture, every moment. Proof that Clara had been lying to me, betraying me for months. I could barely breathe as I sat there, the full weight of it crashing over me. Clara was cheating on me, and I finally had the proof to show it. I drove back home, my mind swirling with a mix of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. The images of Clara and Marcus were burned into my memory. Her smile, his hands on her waist, the way they laughed together like they didn't have a care in the world. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, trying to steady the storm raging inside me. When I got home, Clara wasn't back yet. I sat on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen, the silence of the house pressing down on me. I replayed the events of the night over and over in my head, each detail fueling my anger. But beneath the anger was a deep, aching sadness. The woman I had loved for nearly a decade, the woman I had built a life with, had been lying to me. The sound of the front door opening snapped me out of my thoughts. Clara walked in, her cheeks flushed, her hair slightly disheveled. She looked happy, too happy. "Hey," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Emily's doing better. We had a good talk tonight." I stared at her, my jaw clenched. "Did you?" She paused, sensing the tension in my voice. "Yeah. Why? What's wrong?" I stood up, my hands trembling as I reached for my phone. "What's wrong, Clara? Is it you've been lying to me?" Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" I unlocked my phone and pulled up the photos I'd taken earlier. "I'm talking about this." I handed her the phone, watching as her eyes scanned the screen. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock to guilt in a matter of seconds. "Daniel, don't!" I snapped, cutting her off. "Don't even try to explain. I saw everything, Clara. I followed you. I saw you with him." She sank onto the couch, her hands shaking as she set the phone down. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because it looks like you've been sneaking around behind my back, using Emily as an excuse to meet your lover. How long has this been going on, Clara? How long have you been lying to me?" She didn't answer, her eyes filling with tears. "Answer me," I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. "A few months," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "A few months," I repeated, my voice rising. "You've been cheating on me for months, and you thought I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was stupid, Clara? Did you think I wouldn't notice?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, tears streaming down her face. It just did. It just did." I laughed bitterly. "That's your excuse? You didn't mean for it to happen? You didn't mean to lie to me, to betray me, to destroy our marriage?" She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "Daniel, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. You love me," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is that why you've been sneaking around with Marcus? Is that why you've been lying to me for months? Because you love me?" She didn't respond, her shoulders shaking as she sobbed. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I can't do this, Clara. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me, who doesn't value our marriage. It's over." Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. "What? No, Daniel, please. We can work through this. I'll end it with Marcus. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." "It's too late for that," I said, my voice cold. "You made your choice, Clara, and now I'm making mine." I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her sitting on the couch, crying. I grabbed a bag from the closet and started throwing clothes into it, my hands still shaking with anger. "Daniel, please," she begged, following me into the bedroom. "Don't leave. We can fix this." I ignored her, zipping up the bag and slinging it over my shoulder. "I'm staying at a hotel tonight. We'll talk tomorrow. Daniel." "Good night, Clara." I walked out of the house, slamming the door behind me. The cool night air hit my face as I got into my car, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I started the engine and drove away, my mind racing. The next morning, I woke up in a cheap motel room, the events of the previous night replaying in my mind like a nightmare. I felt numb, the anger and betrayal still simmering beneath the surface. I knew I couldn't avoid Clara forever. We needed to talk to figure out what came next. But I also knew that there was no going back. The trust between us was shattered, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be repaired. I drove back to the house, my stomach in knots. Clara was sitting on the couch when I walked in, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked up at me, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "Daniel," she said softly. I sat down across from her, my hands clasped in front of me. "We need to talk." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes again. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I never meant to hurt you." "I know," I said, my voice steady. "But that doesn't change what happened. You betrayed me, Clara. You lied to me, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again." She reached out to take my hand, but I pulled away. "Please, Daniel, give me a chance to make this right. I'll do anything." I shook my head. "It's not that simple. This isn't something we can just fix overnight. You broke something between us, Clara, and I don't know if it can ever be repaired." She started to cry again, her shoulders shaking. "I don't want to lose you, Daniel. I love you. I love you too," I said, my voice breaking. "But love isn't enough. Not after this." We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of everything hanging heavy in the air. Finally, I stood up. "I think it's best if we take some time apart," I said. "I need space to figure out what I want." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Okay." I grabbed my bag and walked out of the house, my heart heavy, but my resolve firm. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. Things would never be the same between us. The days that followed were a blur. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of Hartford, trying to create some semblance of a new life. The space was bare and impersonal, but it was mine, a place where I could start over, or at least try to. Clara called and texted constantly, her messages a mix of apologies, pleas, and promises to change. I read them, but didn't respond. I wasn't ready to face her. Not yet. Work became my escape. I threw myself into projects, staying late at the office and volunteering for tasks that kept my mind occupied. My colleagues noticed the change, my quiet demeanor, the dark circles under my eyes, but no one asked questions. I was grateful for that. One evening, as I sat alone in my apartment eating takeout, there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a brief, irrational moment, I wondered if it was Clara. But when I opened the door, it was my older brother, Mike. "Hey," he said, holding up a six-pack of beer. "Thought you could use some company." I stepped aside to let him in, surprised but relieved. Mike and I had always been close, but he wasn't the type to drop by unannounced. He must have known something was wrong. We sat on the couch, cracking open the beers, and for a while we talked about nothing, sports, work, the latest movies. But eventually, the conversation turned to Clara. "So," Mike said, his tone careful, "what's going on with you two? You've been avoiding her calls, and she's been texting me, asking if I've talked to you." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's complicated. Try me." I hesitated, then told him everything, the lies, the messages, the photos, the confrontation. Mike listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he shook his head. "Damn, Daniel. I'm sorry. I had no idea." "Neither did I," I said bitterly. "I thought we were happy. I thought we had everything." Mike leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to forgive her, to try to work things out. But the other part, I don't know if I can ever trust her again." Mike nodded. "That's fair. Trust is hard to rebuild once it's broken." We sat in silence for a while, sipping our beers. Finally, Mike spoke again. "Whatever you decide, just make sure it's what you want. Don't let guilt or pressure sway you. This is your life, Daniel. You deserve to be happy." His words stuck with me long after he left. I thought about them as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. What do I want? A few days later, Clara showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there, her eyes red and swollen, clutching a folder in her hands. "Daniel," she said, her voice trembling. "We need to talk." I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. She sat on the couch, her hands shaking as she opened the folder. "I've been seeing a therapist," she said, pulling out a stack of papers. "I know I messed up, Daniel. I know I hurt you. But I'm trying to figure out why I did what I did, and how to make sure it never happens again." I sat down across from her, my arms crossed. And she took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realized that I took you for granted. I took our marriage for granted. I was so caught up in my own insecurities, my own fears, that I didn't see how much I was hurting you. And for that, I'm so sorry. I didn't say anything, letting her continue. I've been working on myself, she said, her voice breaking. I've been going to therapy, reading books, try to understand why I made the choices I did. And I want to be better, Daniel. Not just for you, but for myself. She reached out to take my hand, but I pulled away. Clara, I appreciate what you're doing. I really do. But this isn't just about you fixing yourself. It's about us. And I don't know if I can get past what happened. Tears streamed down her face. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance to prove to you that I could be the person you thought I was. The person I want to be. I looked at her, my heart aching. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her that chance. But the other part, the part that had been betrayed, lied to, hurt, wasn't ready to let go of the pain. I need time, I said finally. I need space to figure out what I want. And I need you to respect that. She nodded, wiping her tears. Okay, I'll give you all the time you need. Just please don't shut me out completely. I didn't respond, and after a moment, she stood up and left, the folder still sitting on the coffee table. The weeks that followed were a struggle. I tried to focus on myself, on rebuilding my life, but Clara's words haunted me. I thought about the good times we'd had, the dreams we'd shared, the life we'd built together. But I also thought about the lies, the betrayal, the pain. I started seeing a therapist too, someone to help me sort through the mess of emotions I was feeling. It wasn't easy. Talking about my feelings had never been my strong suit, but it helped. Slowly, I began to untangle the knots in my mind, to figure out what I wanted. One evening, as I sat in my therapist's office, she asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. Daniel, she said, her voice gentle, what would it take for you to forgive Clara? I thought about it for a long time before answering. I don't know, I said finally. I don't know if I can. She nodded. And that's okay. Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone. It's something you give if and when you're ready. But you need to ask yourself, can you move forward without it? I didn't have an answer. As the weeks turned into months, Clara and I began to talk more. We met for coffee, for walks, for awkward, stilted conversations that slowly became less awkward. She told me about her therapy, about the work she was doing to understand herself. I told her about my own struggles, my own fears. It wasn't easy. There were moments of anger, of sadness, of doubt. But there were also moments of connection, of understanding, of hope. And then, one day, as we sat in a park watching the leaves fall, Clara turned to me and said, Daniel, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that I'm committed to being better. For you, for us, for myself. And if you're willing to give me another chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I'm worthy of your trust. I looked at her, my heart pounding. For the first time in months, I felt something other than anger or sadness. I felt hope. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said slowly, but I want to try. She smiled through her tears, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The decision to give Clara another chance wasn't easy. It wasn't something I woke up one morning and suddenly felt ready for. It was a slow, painful process, one filled with doubt, fear, and moments of overwhelming vulnerability. But as the weeks turned into months, I began to see a change in her. She was more open, more honest, more willing to confront her own flaws. And slowly, I began to let my guard down. We started couples therapy, a space where we could talk openly about what had happened and what we wanted for the future. It wasn't always pretty. There were tears, arguments, and moments when I wondered if we were wasting our time. But there were also breakthroughs, moments of understanding and connection that reminded me why I had fallen in love with her in the first place. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, we sat in the car in silence for a long time. Finally, Clara turned to me and said, Daniel, I know I don't deserve you, but I want you to know that I'm grateful for this chance, and I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. I looked at her, my heart aching. I know you will, I said softly, and that's why I'm still here. Rebuilding trust was the hardest part. I found myself second-guessing everything. Her words, her actions, even her intentions. There were nights when I lay awake, my mind racing with doubts and fears. But Clara was patient. She answered my questions, no matter how many times I asked them. She was transparent, sharing her phone, her schedule, her thoughts without hesitation. And slowly, I began to believe her again. It wasn't just about her, though. I had to confront my own insecurities, my own fears of being hurt again. I had to learn to let go of the past and focus on the present. It wasn't easy, but with time, I began to feel like myself again, stronger, more confident, more at peace. A year after the affair came to light, Clara and I went on a trip together, a weekend getaway to a small cabin in the mountains. It was a chance to reconnect, to celebrate how far we'd come. One evening, as we sat by the fire, Clara turned to me and said, "Daniel, I know I can't erase what I did, but I want you to know that I'm committed to this, to us. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret giving me another chance." I looked at her, my heart full. "I don't regret it," I said. "Not for a second." She smiled, tears in her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were truly moving forward. The road ahead wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, still moments of doubt and fear. But we faced them together as a team. And in doing so, we built something stronger than what we had before. A relationship rooted in honesty, trust, and a deep understanding of each other. Looking back, I realized that the affair had been a turning point, not just for our marriage, but for both of us as individuals. It forced us to confront our flaws, to grow, to change. And in the end, it brought us closer together. Years later, as we celebrated our anniversary, I thought about how far we'd come. We weren't the same people we had been before the affair, and that was okay. We were better, stronger, wiser, more in tune with each other and ourselves. As I looked at Clara across the table, her eyes sparkling with laughter, I felt a surge of gratitude. We had been through hell and back, but we had come out the other side, together. And that, I realized, was the true measure of love.